Good morning.
And welcome to a celebration of life for Alice Bushland crew. I'm going to speak for myself here, but I'm amazed. At the end of this unprecedented week, to see all your faces makes me feel wonderful. And it's a tribute to my mother. So stay healthy, everyone, okay? We've tried really hard to practice social distancing. Some of us more so than others, right? But Mom would be very pleased to see all of you. You're going to meet over the course of the service today all of her immediate family because most of us are going to be speaking. But we'd like to recognize some other family members. Alice's sister Betty is here. Wave your hand, Betty. Betty will be 97 in April. And if you know, and if you know Betty and Alice, you know that they had a lifelong sibling rivalry, particularly over who made the best cookies. Right? Who made the best cookies, Betty? Okay. Alice's cousin Gene Kiesel is here with his wife Dawn. They made the trip from Flint. There are many nieces and nephews here. On the Crew side of our family, Alice was the last of her generation. At the Crew family reunion this summer, Alice's niece Sue made a beautiful quilt, and everyone in the family signed it for Alice. There are also lifelong friends and neighbors here. We want you to know that Alice cared about all of you. She loved hearing about what you were doing, and she especially liked pictures that you posted on Facebook. She considered all of you as part of her larger life family. Now, many of you have asked us if there was something that you could do in Mom's memory. We've talked about it, my brothers and I, and there isn't a specific charity. We'd like you to donate to the charity of your choice, especially if it supports children, education, or the arts. But there's something much simpler that you can do. In all of the stories that you've told us about your experiences with Mom, there's one word that keeps coming up over and over again, and that is kind. Which is why we've given each of you, if you didn't get one, they're on the table on the way out, a wristband with hashtag kindness. Be kind, make a difference, pass it on. Wear your wristband and let it remind you of how being kind makes the world a better place and leaves a lasting impression. My mom led a very simple life. She rarely talked about herself, and she never wanted to be the center of attention. And as a result, you may not know some of the stories of her life. So this is what we'd like to do today. Members of her family and friends are going to tell you the stories of her remarkable 95 years. And we're going to begin with my brother Tom.
So as I stand here with my prepared remarks, I suddenly feel like my prepared remarks are inadequate. As I look out at some of these faces and people I haven't seen in so long and that surprised me here today, I'm going to divert a little bit and ad lib and say, play off Kathy's remarks about kindness, and I'll also add grace to that, because yesterday Mom joined Dad at Great Lakes National Cemetery, and you know, it was World War II that brought them together, and my dad, you know, just often would tell me, I have no idea why I'm here, but for the grace of God and the full fury of every gun in the Pacific Fleet, I'm here today. And you think about the thin thread that holds us all together, and all the circumstances, the career choices, the people he hired, the teachers that changed our lives, and gave us a fighting chance out of in that rough world. And all of this is tied back to those thin threads and just, persevering, having faith, being kind, being graceful. Both of them believed that if you did good, if you treated people right, that it would manifest itself in ways and come back in unknown ways. Your presence here today is proof of that. Alice May Bushland was born in Unionville, Michigan on October 10th, 1924. She was the second of 3 children, with an older sister, Betty, and a younger brother, Ernie. Her father, Earl Bushland, was a first-generation American of Swiss descent from near Siebwing, and her mother, Elsa Kiesel, was a first-generation American of German descent from Manistee. Smatterings of German language and phrases are occasionally used in their home, and some still exist today in the family today. My personal favorite is besuffen, which just might happen later today. You know what that is? Okay, that's good. Unionville was a small town on Michigan's thumb. They served as a hub for surrounding agricultural activities. Mom's father ran the local milling company, whose primary commodity was navy beans, which he bought from local farmers, packaged, and sold and shipped to companies such as Van Camps. It was a community where everyone knew each other. Mom played the saxophone in the school band, and her graduating class only had about a dozen students. When she was about 9, Mom was struck by a car, suffering a fractured skull and neck injuries that would bother her for the rest of her life. The family owned a cottage on Sand Point in Saginaw Bay, where many of her fondest youthful memories were centered. Mom's grandfather, August Kusel, which they later changed to Kiesel, was a lumberjack who died in 1916. And when her grandmother, Albertina Augustine Henrietta Spiegel Kusel, you gotta say that fast, died in 1925, she left 2 orphan sons, Arnold and Arthur. Arnold went to Unionville to live with Mom's family, where he stayed until graduating from high school and then going on into the Army. So Arnold was kind of a surrogate brother. In 1939, Arnold Bushland became ill with pancreatic cancer. Being an astute businessman, he began planning for his family's future by investing in companies that promised long-term growth as the country clawed its way out of the Great Depression and into World War II. When he died in 1940, Mom was just 16. He left a final letter, which I've got back there on the windowsill, directing them not to loan money to relatives and to live comfortably, but not extravagantly, and to be happy. His legacy still lives on today and continues to guide and support subsequent generations. At the time of her father's death, Mom was a high school senior, and her sister Betty was a freshman at Michigan State College. After Mom finished high school, Elsa sold her home in Unionville and moved to East Lansing, so her children could afford to go to college by living at home. One of Mom's uncles, Howard Rather, was a professor of agriculture at Michigan State and helped them relocate. There's a dormitory, Rather Hall, named after him on MSU campus. It's in the Brody Complex for all you Spartans. Less than 3 months after Mom became a student at Michigan State, the United States entered World War II. The college became a bustling training facility for servicemen, and seeing the need, Elsa helped found a Lutheran church that met in the State Theater right off the campus on Abbott Road. This church later became University Lutheran, which is on Harrison Road. Elsa's willingness to help servicemen and open her home to them brought my parents together. Meals at Elsa's 318 North Lawn Navy Home resulted in a lengthy correspondence between my parents, between Michigan and the far reaches of the Pacific War. Mom graduated in the spring of 1945 with a degree in home economics and started a career as an interior decorator with J.L. Hudson's in Detroit. When Dad returned to Ypsilanti in the fall of 1946 to finish college, they began dating. He graduated the next spring and became an instrumental music teacher in Utica. During his first year of teaching, he proposed to Mom, and they were married on June 19, 1948. They lived humbly in a small apartment where during cold snaps, Mom would occasionally wake up Dad and say things like, "Louis, you either need to put more coal in the furnace or break the ice in the toilet so I can use it." I'm going to stop here. So Dad grew up in a farmhouse in Ogama County where the heat was a hole in the floor and a wood stove in the kitchen. So he grew up knowing what it was like to be cold, and I guess he became immune to it. My mom was not. After 2 years of marriage, my sister Kathy was born, and Dad turned out the Utica High School marching band and led them down Cass Avenue in celebration. Not long after that, they moved to Pontiac, where my brother Chuck and I were born in 1953 and 57. An interesting side note, Mom's doctor, Harold Furlong, who delivered all three of us, was a Medal of Honor recipient from World War I. As a family friend pointed out, Rick, I'm talking about you, we were the Cleavers, except Wally and Beaver had a sister. Midwestern, middle class, middle of the road, baby boomers. I think my sister's going to talk more about how we weren't the Cleavers later, but that's okay. I could go on and on about Mom's qualities as a mother, but I'll just end by saying she was the greatest mother of the greatest generation. And I know that to be true because I read it in a book.
Once I don't have to follow you, huh? I'm already off to a good start. Thank you everybody for being here today. We're here to talk about Alice as a grandmother. 5 years ago I stood in this room and I bombed really hard. I tried to speak off the cuff about two people that just meant the world to me, and I'm not going to do that today. My voice is already cracking. It's my father's fault. As many of you know him, anytime he speaks.
We'll get faster ready.
Yeah, all right. I've thought long and hard about what I want to say here today. Choosing the right words to honor someone that meant so much to me. All right, I got it. The main point I want to make is that Louis and Alice were an active part of my life. And I mean active. They had enough money where they could have been on a beach sipping margaritas. They chose to be in a church gym in New Baltimore watching me put up 28 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. I'm not here to talk about my greatness. I'm here to talk about Alice's greatness as a grandparent. Because I have a feeble brain and I can only speak in sports metaphors, Alice was a first ballot Hall of Fame grandmother and a great grandmother. She was the Cal Ripken of grandmothers, actually. For those of you who don't know, Cal Ripken played 2,632 consecutive games. He was the standard of how to be a professional ball player. And that's really when I think about legacy, and I think about Alice's legacy, that's why I thought of Cal Ripken, because no one remembers the home runs, all the stuff that he did. They remember how he was an example to every young player of how to be a professional. And Alice was that example to our family. One of the greatest joys of my life is watching my parents, Brian and Kathy, carry on that legacy with my 2 boys. Unfortunately, I'm thinking about Alice's legacy in that she did not teach me how to hit a curveball. So one thing she didn't teach me. My only hope is that one day in the far, 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 far distant future, I will get the chance to carry on that same legacy as a grandparent. Legacy is a big word. After Louis passed, I tried to visit Alice as much as possible. I would always ask her, "How you doing, Grandma?" And she would always say, "I'm still here." I'm looking out at this room today, and she is still here. One of the most impressive things about her was, much like Cal Ripken, Alice played hurt for a long time, and it never dampened her spirit. I see that same spirit here today, and it's an honor to my grandma, and thank you for being here again.
Hi guys. 2 other grandchildren would like to present something, but they're not here. So I'm going to show you their video they provided for us to give you their memories of their parents.
Hey everyone, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Caroline Roebuck. I am the first crew granddaughter. My husband Daniel and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're not able to be there this weekend. We really wish we could, but we wanted to record these videos of some special memories we have of Grandma. So growing up, Grandma was always such a kind, generous, caring person. She was always wanting to make sure that my sister Melissa and I were entertained, we're having a fun time. She was really all that you could ask for in a grandmother. Even though we lived in North Carolina and Grandma and Grandpa lived in Michigan, my parents would take us to Michigan each Christmas and summer, spend time with them, and then also each spring break to Venice Beach, Florida, where Grandma and Grandpa would get away for a few months from the cold, snowy Michigan weather. So just to share a few specific memories about Venice Beach. When I was little, playing in the sand, swimming in the pool, sometimes doing water aerobics with Grandma in the morning, flying kites if it was a windy day out, watching the sunset, eating ice cream at Nokomis Orchard and taking home fresh oranges to make fresh squeezed orange juice. And then something that was unique with Grandma was that she wanted to buy a t-shirt for my sister and I each year. We would go to the same t-shirt shop for about probably 10 or so years to pick out a print that we liked, and they would print right on there. So we would have this custom designed t-shirt to remember each year when we came home. When I went to college, which was ECU in Greenville, North Carolina, Grandma and Grandpa were always asking about my studies, what I was learning, how my grades were. They very generously gave towards my college tuition, which is something that they definitely didn't have to do, but I'm very thankful for, especially as I've gotten older and started working as a nurse. Very thankful that they chose to do that. They were actually able to attend my college graduation in Greenville in 2013. They were still in pretty good shape then, and were able to make the trip. And that's very cool to look back on and to remember that they were there to celebrate one of the biggest milestones, really, for me. And then not long after that, about 7 months later, is when Daniel and I got married, and they were also able to come to that wedding. Grandpa at the time wasn't doing the greatest. He was walking with a walker, was very reliant on that, but Grandma was still getting around great, and she really got along great until close to the very end. I would tell her, Grandma, you are the most healthy, independent, mentally sharp woman for your age that I've met. And I truly meant that. As working as a nurse in primary care, I mainly see patients over 65 years of age, and I would meet so many patients, so many people much younger than her that had dementia or needed a walker, cane, wheelchair. They relied on that, in their 60s or 70s even. And for Grandma to be so independent and doing so well for so long, I feel very thankful that she was able to feel good and that we were able to spend so much time with her. The times that we visited her in Magnolia, you could tell just how well she got along with all the residents. They were all her friends. She was always so friendly and wanted to get to know everyone, and that's just who Grandma was. So I'm glad to have visited her the times we were there. She really loved Magnolia, loved her time there. One last thing I wanted to share about Grandma and Grandpa is I'll switch my phone over here so you can see it. Actually, this cradle that Grandma and Grandpa built. I'm sure Grandpa did the majority of the woodworking for it, but I think Grandma may have helped with some of the design or the stain. But they built this for me, actually, summer 1991, when my parents were expecting me to come in September. My grandparents surprised my parents with it, and I was the first grandchild to sleep in it, and then several other grandchildren and great-grandchildren were able to sleep in it after, and it really became like a family heirloom. So I'm very excited to have that to welcome our baby girl home to in June, just in a few short months. it was something that you can tell, poured a lot of time and effort and love into, and very thankful to have that in our home. That's really all I have to say, and I wish once again that we could have been there today, but I hope you're all having a wonderful time just remembering how wonderful of a person Grandma was, just how loving she was, and in the long life that she had here. Hope to see some of you soon. Hope you're doing well. Take care.
Caroline's husband, who also has memories of his mother, his grandmother.
Hey everybody, my name is Daniel Roebuck and I'm Caroline's husband. I hope you guys are having a good time today, sharing memories about Mrs. Crew and just enjoying each other's company. And I know that she was a special lady to many people, so I wanted to take a couple minutes to share a few memories that I have of her. And the first one that comes to mind is the first time that I met her. Her and Mr. Crew would always stop in Raleigh on their way down from Michigan to Florida at the beginning of the winter, and they would stay with Chuck and Nancy. So one middle of the week, I stopped by and had dinner, and I met both her and Mr. Crew. And it was funny because right when I walked into the living room, the first thing that she said to me was, "Oh, well, I've seen you on Facebook." And so it was funny to me because at the time, and I guess even now, I don't know many people who are in their upper 80s and close to 90 who are on Facebook, and and they're familiar with that technology and how to use it to stay connected. So I admired that about her, that she wasn't intimidated by that, and she was, she had learned how to navigate Facebook and stay connected with folks through that. So that was pretty neat. One other thing about that visit that really stood out was being able to sit down and listen to her and Mr. Crew talk about their experiences in World War II. Because for me, as somebody who really enjoys reading about history and learning about our country's history, it was just kind of like sitting there with an open textbook, two people who had lived through it and had really vivid memories of it. That's something that I'll always remember, and it was just such a neat experience to be able to hear about some of the things in person that I had read about in books before. So the last one I'll share with you is every year Mrs. Cruz, she would always send us a birthday card. She would send me one as well, and I'm sure a lot of you guys got one of those every year too. But she would do it on the computer, and she would print it out, and she would have a few pictures on the inside of it. And so she always used the same picture for me. And the first or second time me and Caroline went to Michigan, it was for Mrs. Cruz's 90th birthday party that we had at the community center in Sylvan Lake. And you guys gave me the Detroit Tigers baseball hat. So on the way back to Raleigh, when Caroline and I were in the Detroit airport, I was wearing the hat, and she took a picture of me while I was wearing it, and she posted it to Facebook. So sure enough, about 2 weeks later, on my birthday card, the picture on the front was me, the one where I was sitting in the airport wearing the hat that was on Facebook. So the funny part is that for the next 5 or 6 years, the card that I received, that was the picture that was on the front of it. So she must have been pretty proud that I was representing the Detroit Tigers, because every year that was the picture that I got. But she was just a really sweet lady. She never had to do that. So it was just a really nice gesture for her to take the time to do that, for obviously for Caroline, but even for me every year. So I just really appreciated that. And again, I know she meant a lot to all of you folks, and I hope this is a happy day for you. Having a good time, just seeing everybody again and being able to remember all the good times you have with Mrs. Crew. So again, hope you guys are having a good day, and hopefully we'll be able to see you guys sometime soon. So take care.
The last one is our youngest daughter, Melissa. Be shorter, because she doesn't like to talk.
Hi, my name is Melissa, and I'm the youngest grandchild. I have so many wonderful memories of my grandma, and most of them come from all the spring breaks my family would spend down in Venice, Florida with Grandma and Grandpa. My junior year of high school, I had a foreign exchange student from Germany named Isabella, and she came with us to Florida. And Grandma was just so welcoming to her, and Grandma knew a little bit of German from her mother being German, and would try and speak German with Isabella, and it just really meant so much to me, and I know it meant a lot to Isabella too, that Grandma was so kind and welcoming. And she really was like that to everyone that she met, and that's something I really admire about her. And Grandma just always made me feel so loved and appreciated, and I will really miss her. I'm sorry I can't be there today, but I'm thinking of you all and hope to see you soon.
There's a family picture of us in the back of the room that's also circulated on Facebook that inspired the thought that we look like the Cleavers, even though Beaver Cleaver had a sister in the picture. I think if you talk to the three of us, we agree that we had a wonderful childhood, much like you saw on TV with the Cleavers. But I know that my mom was never an easy June Cleaver. She was never a comfortable cook. She blamed her sister Betty, always saying that Betty, who is a fantastic cook, never let her in the kitchen. But the truth was, her passion and creative energy were always in the arts. In the early 60s, when all three of us were in school all day, she began a career as an artist. And many of you told me you never knew this. She began taking art classes at Oakland University, and for several years she was an active painter. She took classes in oil painting, figure painting, still life, abstract painting, and she exhibited her art in local schools and at the Pontiac Art Center. She signed her paintings A.B. Crew, or sometimes just ABC. She sold a few paintings, but most of them she gave away. Many of you have A.B. Crew originals hanging in your homes. I have two of her paintings displayed in the back of the room. And then her art career paused when she decided she wanted to go back to work full-time and become a teacher. In her mid-40s, she joined a national program to recruit teachers for inner-city schools called Teacher Corps. Young college graduates came to Pontiac from all over the United States to team teach in a classroom during the day and take graduate classes in education at night. At the end of 2 years, these students graduated with a master's degree in education. One of Mom's colleagues in this program was a young man from New Mexico named Paul Sanford. Mom knew he was far away from home, and so she invited him to spend time with her family. They corresponded for years, and when Tom wrote Paul to tell him about Mom's passing, Paul wrote back saying, "When I came to Michigan in 1969 to work and study in the Teacher Corps, I met your parents. Both were so kind, considerate, and helpful to me. They had a great impact in my 40-year career in education." In an ironic twist of fate, Mom graduated from the Teacher Corps and began a teaching career in West Bloomfield schools the year that I began college and began studying education. And 4 years later, when I got my first teaching job, my mother was my first mentor.
Okay, just a couple minutes till we get our video going here. I'm going to talk about the travel years for my mother. I have the notes because I couldn't have the ability to read them right now. The ability to choke while you're doing something you care about is very prominent in the Crew family. Anyway, the first thing we're going to see when Nancy gets the couple pictures up there was the early travel years of Alice. There's Alice in front of the Grand Canyon. And there's Alice with her sister and mother and a friend. So that was the early travel years. And you can imagine that year, you know, in the 40s, driving out there and making all the way to the West Coast, that was when her early travel career started. So, you have to understand about the Crew family vacations. We didn't have a lot of money, being a family with teachers, but we experienced the most memorable family vacations, always in a pickup, or in a station wagon, with 3 kids crammed back in there, no seat belts, no air conditioning. And a Alice memory that probably she wouldn't want me to say is we were going through the Badlands of the Dakotas, and it was blistering hot. And we had no air conditioning because people didn't have air conditioning in Michigan at the time. And she was really hot, but we did have a cooler with ice. So what did Alice do to cool down? She put an ice cube down her cleavage. So that's a memory you don't forget. I'll share it. I won't share all the other memories we don't forget. They're not quite ready for public consumption. We had lots of memories. Our first vacations were in a probably 8x8 umbrella tent with 2 cots for mom and dad, and 3 kids in Tetris formulation on the floor. So Tom has a number of comments he makes about his, because he was the youngest and the smallest, he got the most cramped space. But we lived through hailstorms, we lived through all sorts of different things we remember. One of them was because Tom and I had June and July birthdays, we were usually on vacation during one of my birthdays, my brother's birthdays. So Alice had to make a cake of some sort, of course. Well, she, as was stated before, wasn't always that comfortable in the kitchen, but she really wanted to put together a fabulous birthday cake one summer. And we had it out on the picnic table, and all of a sudden, a big hailstorm comes in. I mean, it was, so we're flying into the tent to get out of the weather. And of course, where's the cake? It's just getting pounded by And, but she needed to have a birthday cake, so I don't know whether you remember these little Hostess snowballs. Well, we had a Hostess snowball inside the tent with a hail pounding down with one little birthday candle in it and saying happy birthday. So, special times during our family vacation. I graduated from Michigan State. I took my first job in Chicago, moved to Atlanta. And I said, I want to travel. And my parents did everything for their family. There was not one time that they went off and did something on their own. So I said, I called them up one day and I says, I'm going to Europe. You're coming with me. You can't say no. I don't know how long it took them to get off the floor or whatever the case, but they knew that they weren't going to disappoint one of their children because they never did. So we got on a plane, flew to London, and here's a bunch of pictures of some, I just put a few of them in there from our travels in Europe. So one of them that you'll see is where I think Alice looks like Sophia Loren. This is going up the Cod Railroad up to the top of the Swiss mountains. And we are at the top of Swiss mountain. Made it to Florence. And there is Sophia Loren. Made it to Pisa. Made it to the Rhine River in Germany. There's Alice being very nonchalant in front of the Coliseum. I teach social studies, I know all this stuff. there's another picture. Oh, yeah, I know this stuff. This is us. That's not me in the shorts, don't look. At a boat, going to Venice. These are not all in order. There's one of our friends who's on our boat doing a little,
We can't ignore the mustache, Doug. It's glorious. Tom Selleck.
Two islands off Venice that were Murano for lace and for glass, and that was us in one of those. That was in there too. All right, so that was a quick fly through of the 2 weeks we spent in Europe, which there were numerous times in family that, there'd be something would pop up and Alice would say, I've been there. And it was because they agreed to my little, you shall go or bad things will happen to you requirement. So now the next thing is their 20 plus years of spending usually February 1st to April 15th in Venice, Florida. That's the high rise in MacArthur Beach. That's them in front of the pool. We started out in the high rise for a number of years. Brenda will remember when the hurricanes were blowing, the windows were rattling, and we didn't get much sleep. There's their unit in the upper right-hand corner in the middle that they stayed at for probably 15 years. And it was the Venice sunset right on the Gulf. It was always a sunset get-together. That is the water aerobics teacher that Alice, when you came to visit, you had to go to water aerobics. It was required. And she had her money out, because she paid for your fee to go to water aerobics. It was very big for her. And we had lots of fun memories from there. That's her ladies group that she would meet with. There's Kathy at downtown Venice with all the different artwork that they had. And that's my daughter Caroline on Sharky's Pier. Another sunset with Caroline. And Brenda and Caroline. Caroline went down by herself for a time. There's Nick and Brenda. There's some more Aurora. And there's Isabel's on the left with Melissa. Time to go down there. She liked Tai Chi too. So this was up in the tennis court doing Tai Chi exercises. Which she really liked. This was all dressed up to go to an Easter brunch down at Venice. Another family picture on the bench. There was the pool. A lot of time spent in the pool. Other beach sunset picture. I think we've made it all the way through. Yep. So those were the big things. They really, really did enjoy their time in Florida, and I think all their family members enjoyed their time in Florida too, because I think we might have missed 1 year when our school spring break didn't match with when they were going to be down there. But lots of fun times down there. They appreciated it. I think they enjoyed having family down there more than just being down there themselves. But they picked that because it was a number of their work friends had retired down there. So it was a chance for them to go down there and spend time with their work friends. And Alice golfed, and my dad golfed too, so there was a lot of times that they spent on the golf course together. A lot of funny stories from some of the golf course activities too. So that's the traveling years for my life. Thank you.
My name is Sam Osborne, and we were longtime friends of the Crews. And I know all of you out there have your own friend stories with Louis and Alice. And the one thing I always will say about Alice, she knew how to handle Louis. And we saw that many times as we got to know them and became friends with them. But before we became close friends with the Crews, rumors and stories emerged about the escapades of the infamous Mental Health Club. It was a nefarious group that consisted of 6 Pontiac School District legends and their equally capable spouses. Bert and Nancy Van Kennett, Thor and Gail Peterson, Bill and Claire Nunez, Wes and Nancy Moss, Alice and Lou, and the last surviving couple of this group, Lee and Joan Hasslinger. This group held monthly mental health sessions, which allowed them to let off steam from the many pressures they experienced in their daily jobs. To my understanding, responsibilities for the monthly sessions rotated from couple to couple and ended up at various venues, from Handicapper Nunez's favorite horse track to local eateries in the area. These events usually started at someone's house and often ended there as well. Legend has it that on one occasion when Bill Nunez was attempting to negotiate a teacher union contract and the strike appeared imminent, all the members of the club showed up at Bill and Claire's house, decked out with strike signs and picketed in front of his house. On another occasion, which I believe was going to be a group horse trail ride that convened at the Crew Hacienda, Thor Peterson, who was a gentleman farmer, showed up at the Crew house with a pickup truck load of horse manure and dumped it in their driveway.
I had to move it.
I'm told the Crew's roses that year were exceptionally beautiful. As Sharon and I became close friends with our boss, Bill Nunez, a new group was formed known as the Cadillac Clan. Alice and Lou, Bill and Claire, and Dom and Jane Patera, and Sharon and I thus began 15 annual trips to McGuire's in Cadillac, Michigan. It was an event that required frequent planning meetings throughout the year and training events to prepare for the annual trek up north. Much business was to be conducted at these meetings. There were committee assignments, regular committee reports were required, and also we had to warm up at a local course prior to going up north. These events were highly organized into couple responsibilities. The Transportation Committee provided CB radios so the caravan could communicate during the trek north. Rest stops were scheduled for the older gentlemen, and screwdrivers and Bloody Marys fortified us during these stops, along with pastries. The Hospitality Committee willingly sacrificed their room, which was usually Lewis and Alice. They sacrificed their room for our gatherings after golf, where we discussed our golfing prowess. And they also provided the snacks and libations for those. Jane Patera was given a special assignment of keeping a roll of toilet paper in her cart for the ladies' occasional sojourns into the pine trees. The tournament committee was charged with organizing tee times, carts, golf pairings, and the recording and posting of scores. The entertainment committee was responsible for providing evening entertainment. Some evening activities involved Sharon's belly dancing exhibition, penny hunts on the course at night in the dark, driving golf carts all over the course, a Monte Carlo evening of roulette, blackjack, and craps, and dancing and relaxing at the McGuire's restaurant. In our later years, this group evolved into a group called the Social Outburst. And they brought in Nancy Van Kennett, Joan and Lee Hasslinger, Don and Irma Millen into our little group. Since many couples disappeared to warmer climates, as Chuck mentioned, in the winter months, these monthly get-togethers started the summer season at the Patera Off-Track Betting Parlor for Kentucky Derby Day. The McMillans usually hosted their event at their daughter Phyllis's home. Between Max Grilled Steaks and Phyllis's Hospitality and Cocktails, It was always a special night. Lee and Joan Hasslinger always had new and tasty dinners, and Nancy Van Kennett wowed us with her various recipes with each dinner she prepared. The monthly socials often closed with a color cruise on White Lake at our house at the end of the fall season in White Lake. As you know, Alice and Lou developed their special art and woodworking skills in their retirement years. Their little cottage industry became known as Crewcraft, with 2 shows a year where they sold their art and wood products. Lou was the woodworker and Alice was the artist. Their lath art, bowls, pins, creative products, paintings became another way they remained socially active in their community. All of us were occasionally blessed with these gifts created by Alice and Lou. Sadly, over time, our numbers dwindled as one by one, many of our members passed away. The remaining social events in Alice and Nancy Kennett's last years were weekly card games of hand and foot attended by Jane Patera, Sharon, my wife, and Joan Hasslinger. They led a very active and fun-filled social life. For all the years that we have known Alice and Lou, the stories of the Mental Health Club, the Cadillac Plan, and the social outburst are all memories that will make us smile until we move on as well. Thank you.
No, there's gas, I heard gas coming from the side. And both boys are saying.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to get through with this, and then my major goal, as I get through commenting okay, I'm Brian, I'm Alice's favorite son-in-law. Please be patient here. My goal here is not to have Pat Pasquaretti come up, take this microphone from me when I got cracked up at my wife's retirement party. Come on, how do you get emotional about it? Okay, so anyway. I want to speak on behalf of not only myself, but Brenda and Nancy. I think, okay. Okay, Jeff, all right. Alice and Lewis accepted me into the family. I was just a, Catholic boy, talking about altar boy stories, and I was just different. And the one thing about Alice and Lewis was they just accepted me for who I was. I never felt unwelcome in this family. It was great. It was just fantastic. Okay, I get it. So she never said a bad word about anybody. Well, one person. But that's it. She just took everybody in. She was very accepting of me, my faults, my good points. I just felt very welcome. And I just want to pass on, there's a reason you got this wristband, okay? Think about it daily. Use it in your life as a tribute to Alice. Thank you.
That was unscripted. He asked if he could say something, and we all went, okay. But he meant every word. I love you, dear. Thank you. Okay. When Alice decided to leave her home and move to a senior living community, it wasn't because she needed daily living help. She told us that she missed people and wanted to be part of a community of other seniors. Magnolia by the Lakes opened in April of 2017, and Alice moved to her villa in May. As one of the first group of residents, she watched a community grow. She welcomed new residents, and at the age of 92, found a new group of friends. There was exercise class in the morning, book club on Mondays, bingo every Wednesday, omelets Thursday mornings, field trips in the Magnolia Bus, otherwise known as Kim and Kathy's Tours, and theme dinners every month. Families were invited to these theme dinners, and Brian and I, because we live so close, were able to attend every dinner. But Alice was worried about other residents who didn't have family close by. So what she did is she talked to people. Do you have someone to sit with? Do you have someone to sit with? And she invited anyone who didn't have family attending to become her family. And the reserve sign on her table always read, Alice Crew Family. And as you can see today, the whole idea of family includes all of you. And it doesn't have to be just relations. If she touched your life, she considered you her family. We'd like to close today's program with music. Several years ago, I joined the Metropolitan Detroit Chorale. My parents came to every one of our concerts. They joined us for social events, and they became big supporters of the chorale. One of Alice's favorite musicians was the English composer and choir master John Rutter. To honor Alice, members of the Metropolitan Detroit Chorale, who are here today, would like to sing John Rutter's A Clare Benediction. A benediction is a blessing and a wish for peace at the end of a service. I can think of no better way to thank you for being here today than to wish you the blessings of a life filled with peace, kindness, and family. Please join us for lunch. The buffet is set up in the other room. It's set up so that you can help yourself and come back and sit at tables or the high tops. And again, we'd like to thank you all for being here today.